Shut up and sit down.
Hello! Welcome to the Dial Podcast with your hosts, Matt LeGrand, Evan Price, and Jake Von During. Sit down, hold on, and enjoy the show.
Welcome. I'm here with Mr. Matt LeGrand.
Hey,
and Mr. Evan Price.
how's it going?
We are bringing you the Dialed Podcast. Matt, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Okay, yeah, my name is Matt LeGrand, and I like long walks on the beach and sunset strolls, basically. I only listen to Taylor Swift, but I do have a Justin Bieber poster on my wall. Don't tell my parents. They do not understand me. And basically, that's who I am in a nutshell.
Bravo.
Yeah.
Evan.
He's a little too humble. My name's Evan Price. I'm a doctor of physical therapy, and I enjoy long runs on a treadmill because I'm boring. And I have a Lance Armstrong poster because I still really appreciate that guy, which is probably controversial, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm digging that yellow wristband you still got going on these days, too. It's looking good.
Go Lance.
And my name's Jake Von During, and I like bicycles a lot. I'm not one to come here and talk to you guys about the running stuff and the triathlon stuff and other fun things in that arena that Mr. Matt and Mr. Evan will talk to us about. But I bring the bicycle perspective. Basically, today we're going to come and introduce ourselves, which we're starting to do right now. We're going to talk a little bit more about this Dial Podcast and what it is that we hope to bring you guys. Evan, what are your thoughts? What is it that you want to get across to all these people?
Well, the first thing is when I only moved out here since June of 2017, so I haven't even been here a year yet. Jake being one of the first people I met, and he's obviously got a team and an environment he's building in Vancouver, Washington, which is blown up quickly. I guess there are a lot of people who like to ride their bikes around here, and a lot more people that are hopefully going to want to race soon. So for me, my only goal as a physical therapist is to work with this endurance community, and why not be with the fastest growing and best group of people I know? So that's why I'm here. And Matt, I just randomly ran into was it a trail run or a race once?
I don't know.
I don't remember. Me and Matt are both weird, so we just got along really, really well. So
We're just weird. Yeah. No, I think, I don't remember. I think you won the Midsummer Triathlon. And then someone, maybe Derek was like, hey, you need to come like meet this guy. And then we were like, okay, let's do a run. And we ran together, and that was awesome. And that was that. So that's how we met. Jake was similar, actually. There's another cyclist in the area named Corey, and he was like, hey, there's this guy in town, and I can't keep up with him. And I'm like, all right, no big deal. I'll go. I'm tough. I'm good. So tough. And we go out for a ride in Washougal, which is a hilly area in this general region, and we start the first hill, and I just start hammering as hard as I can. And Jake is just, still having conversation with me, like pulling up next to me. We keep riding up this hill, and like I crack. I give up like halfway through the hill. And then ironically, like Corey comes by me like too, and I'm just out the back of everyone, just like could not even come close to hanging with either of you guys. So needless to say, that was a pretty pointless effort on Corey's part to bring me along with you guys as if I could ride with you, but fun times were had.
The classic triathlete complex is I ride bikes sometimes. I can hang with these guys, right? Yeah. No, it's easy. It's like jumping into a pool with a high school team. You're like, I swim every once in a while.
I swim.
Evan, tell me a little bit more about yourself. You are a physical therapist. Where do you work, Evan, and what are some of your specialties?
I work with Proactive Physical Therapy, sports therapy. We are located basically all over Northern Oregon and Southern Washington. I work at the East Vancouver Clinic. We are a group of therapists that is private practice, which I'm really proud of because we are not a massive machine. I think that results in a lot of quality care. So for me, basically, since I got here in the summer, was just building myself as the endurance PT, working with local high school cross country teams and track teams, triathlon teams in the area, triathletes in general. And, I came from Ohio, where that was what I was known as in that area, and basically jumped to Colorado for a second and then came out here. So I drove my car, 1,400 miles or something. Yeah. Kansas is terrible.
I think one of the first times I ever saw your name, somebody somewhere on Facebook posted up, hey, I need a recommendation for a physical therapist. And I was a little late to the party and saw this, and I didn't know you, and your name popped up about 15 times in that recommendations list, and everybody's like, you got to go see this guy. And then I come to find out that he'd only been here for just a few months. So this guy is making an incredible impact on our local physical therapy scene for endurance athletes, and that's pretty much what it was. It was a group of folks. I believe it was a triathlete who was having maybe like a leg problem of sorts, and it was pretty cool to see this. And I wonder who this guy is. So fast forward a week or two or three, get a phone call from somebody saying, hey, I got to introduce you to this guy, Evan. And then next thing you know, I've got Evan calling me because he wants somebody to help him with his bike. And the rest is kind of history. He's a great guy, great physical therapist, and he's a pretty stellar athlete. Matt, can you tell us a little bit about some of maybe Evan's accomplishments?
Yeah, what's interesting is that was the same thing. I didn't actually see the Facebook post or anything like that, but I was, just chatting with people, and they're like, yeah, I see Evan. I'm like, oh yeah, like, how is he? Like, I'm asking, like, because I think you're cool, but like, that doesn't matter, right? Like, just because you're cool doesn't mean you're a good PT, right? So, so I'm like, what do you think? And oh yeah, he's the best. Like, it's cool. So that's good. Like, and then I ask later on, like months down the road, like, okay, now what do you think? And they're like, yeah, he's the best, right? So it's not just short-term feedback that's good, it's long-term feedback. So that's, and I would tell you if it was otherwise, I'd be like, you're horrible. What are you doing with yourself?
I respond better to negative criticism. I always like that, yeah.
Right.
Hey, one other thing too, Evan's one of those guys that's really unique in that he likes to give back to his community. He wants to see his community grow and thrive and take care of the folks around him. One thing that he does that I actually find to be really neat, even though I'm not a runner that would benefit from this, but I probably should go in there anyway just to get my walking gait fixed. But tell us a little bit about this gait program that you got going on, where you're working with runners and triathletes and doing gait analysis.
Yeah, so where I work at East Vancouver, I work with Cliff Stanford, who is actually a DJ in Portland too. He's a jack of all trades, but he had been for a while wanting to start a running program through Proactive, and that was as soon as I got here. Objective number one was to get that done, and we basically developed a program where we don't use a lot of data analysis. We use a lot of video and a lot of repeated analysis as we go. A progressive rehab program, basically, with the runners. We make sure that they're staying with us for a little bit longer than your typical patient would, especially if it's in race season. And just the gait analysis has kind of come naturally to me over the last, I'd say, 10 years. I kind of always knew I wanted to be a physical therapist. It wasn't something that I kind of stumbled on. It was ever since the beginning of high school, I knew that's what I wanted to do. So running gait for me, and I mean, we will nerd out on this podcast a lot about running gait, but it's just something that came naturally to me, and I really enjoy helping people address that. Yeah.
Coming to a station near you soon. Evan's going to actually be providing something similar to that, but for those that like to ride the bicycle, myself included, and I can't wait to actually have you go in there and pick me apart, because Lord knows I could use some help. Tell me a little bit more about your aspirations with doing bike fittings as well.
Yeah, so we've actually just started this with just straight out of our clinic is how we initially are going to start it. We may have to move to a different space if we need tools, and obviously Jake's help being the expert wrench in the process and also a great bike fitter. But there's classes that you can take through PT, which is what I'm developing into now, and definitely going to Seattle is kind of the hub for the physical therapy specific bike fitting classes. So there's a lot of educational opportunities for PT in the endurance world, but unfortunately there aren't a ton of physical therapists that take advantage of them. So it's nice. It's a little vacuum to fill. So
what tools are you looking at for bike fitting?
Bike fitting from an anatomical point of view, for me, my first thing is I'm going to look at the person. So I probably if I'm doing an hour bike fit, I'm going to spend at least 30 minutes looking at the person. We can make millimeter adjustments to a bike seat or lengthen or shorten a stem, but to me, it's more important that if there's a big pelvic obliquity, Just like when we look at running, like, do you change the running shoes or do you change the runner? You try and change the runner. For one, it's a little bit cheaper option, and two, it's going to give you more long-term benefits. So for me, it's addressing them first, and then looking at, for one, do they have the ability to get into the triathlon position for extended periods of time versus the road bike. Mm-hmm. And then it's looking at things like, where are their levers? So, you know, at the top of their stroke, is their knee in the right place? You know, depending on how much thoracic mobility they have, can they get into the aero position? When they're there, what does it look like? So it's going, for me, a little bit beyond just what position are they putting the most watts out in and where are they most aero, to what is this actual person's anatomy able to get into, especially if you're racing Ironman. People don't consider that's a long time on a bike. Yeah. So Matt knows that.
Yeah, it's ironic. People are like, oh, I just want to be as low as possible. It's like, no, 6 hours. How long can you actually be down that low? But what tools in particular have you looked at? Like Retool is like one of the systems, and I'm not super familiar with all the software options out there. Again, I'm just bringing this back to software, which I shouldn't. But I mean, I know that that's one tool where they'll put little indicators on your knee, shoulder, elbow, what have you, and then you can track those numbers over a set period of time if you're working on flexibility or whatever it is in particular you're working on with your position.
There's actually some programs on your phone that you can use. Some really simple programs. These apps are incredible now. Cliff knows the one off the top of the head that I'm thinking of right now, but there's multiple running gait analysis ones where you can measure angles, and you can use those same exact programs for a bike fit. You can measure any angle from there, which is
you're probably thinking of like Coach's Eye is one.
Exactly. There's also sports metrics ones, like sports metric specific, so they'll use them for like jump testing and stuff, you know, of that sort, but it can also be used for running gait or bike fitting, whatever you need.
Yeah, there's one that I had on my phone for bike fitting as well, and again, it's like you're measuring angles, you know, and it's doing that based on the video. You can set up a tripod, set up your phone on a tripod or whatever, and then measure angles and then kind of adjust that way. And it's probably not quite as accurate as something like Retool, right? Because you're putting these indicators on particular locations. But, I mean, for the price, it's a pretty good deal.
The price as well. That is a very expensive setup. I believe a Retool is somewhere in the ballpark of $10,000 to $15,000. Plus, you need to be certified through them directly, which is another bit of time that you have to spend out there. And going through the process is another expense. So, but it's supposedly got a good end result. So, good.
So we've talked about me here a lot. Let's talk about Jake, because we're going to be talking about somebody very humble here. So I may need to like bring in Matt here to make sure that Jake doesn't brush over any of the things that the man who's grown a team from, what was it, Jake, 8 people last year, 12 people,
10 or 12, I don't know, somewhere in there,
to roughly 2 million now, I think, or 100-person team. It's incredible, along with a triathlon team.
It is. It's pretty incredible to see the growth of the team. And then what I find more impressive than just growth is the fact that it's like it's a good set of people. Like, I think the team is particular about who they actually incorporate into the team, which is interesting. You know, it's always this process of like, okay, well, they need to come ride with us, you know, meet and greet, and just make sure that they're basically not a jerk. You know, I guess is the big the big hurdle to jump. I don't necessarily think you have to be the fastest cyclist in the world to be on the team, and it's much more about like, do you fit with these people, you know? And all these people are pretty humble, you know, easygoing people, and you know, can you fit with these people? Do you know, can you ride with them? You know, are you gonna be helpful or are you gonna be a problem? You know, and so it's neat that the team has grown so much in such a short time. And what's even more impressive is the fact that the people are all amazing people. Like, any of those people I would hang out with for multiple hours because I just enjoy their company. So it's a really good group. But how on earth did you put that together?
You know what? We just flipped on a light switch. It's one of those things where you have something that you want to do, you have something you want to accomplish, and you set up a kind of a mantra of we want to attract the salt of the earth kind of people. We want to attract good people that we want to hang out with. This is a sport that we're passionate about. It's a hobby that we're passionate about. I wanted to, be able to have good people that I can go hang out with on the bike. I mean, we spend lots and lots of hours out there, so I don't need to be wasting my time with somebody that's going to have, that big ego chip on their shoulder, or they're going to, have that elitist attitude. That's something that it's a stigma that's attached to a lot of the roadies out there, and that's where I spend a lot of my time because I'm training. So when I first moved here to the Camas, Washington area, I noticed that there was a lot of people out there. They were out there riding. I could see them on Strava, and there just didn't really seem to be much going on in terms of organization. There wasn't really a defined team here. Once you crossed over the Columbia River and got into the Portland area, you could definitely find yourself some teams and whatnot, but there was nothing going on here. So we, I say we loosely, there was a group of us that were starting to get together and ride more frequently together. Matt being one of them, and now Evan and a few others, and we decided that we wanted to race bikes together, and we wanted to be on a similar team here right in our backyard. So Salt of the Earth people, check. There's plenty of those around here, and they all bonded really quickly, and we made sure that we were looking for more of those types of people if we were going to add to this team. I had no idea when we first started this team that we would go from this 10 to 15 members of just cool people that I'd been doing rides with for about a year. That fast forward, less than a year, and we're
Super short amount of time.
We're pushing 100 people on the team now, which is absolutely insane to me. So it's actually become quite a process of making sure that we guard that chemistry that we're so fond of. We are, taking applications, and we've got people coming out, and it just, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just the cycling vibe in general just naturally cultivates predominantly cool people. I can't say that we've, been 100% successful with finding great people, but the people that we've added to the team are phenomenal. So I'm really excited about that and excited about what the future holds for us. I don't know what to think, though, what's going to happen this year. If we had 15 people this time last year and then fast forward out at 100, what's going to happen? I mean, when do we reach that critical mass? I don't know.
Well, and I feel like we're getting a lot of questions too, because now that it's a larger group, you get these questions like, who's that orange team? Like, that's what I'm hearing. People, is that the orange team? And it's like, for those of you guys that aren't familiar, it's it's an orange kit, and it's got this like pretty cool like digital camo piece to it. And so it's a really nice looking, just color set. And it's just ends up being very unique from other teams in this particular area. So then when you have like this absolutely massive amount of people that are pretty nice and easy going, like I think people are really curious about the team. So unfortunately, you're going to have, I think, a lot of people kind of hitting you up and like asking you about the team and kind of like grilling you, hey, like, what's the deal? Can I get on this team?
Sure. If you like to ride and race bikes and you've got some desire to kind of push forward and give back and help out, and you've got that right personality, we're not turning it off. I mean, if we continue to grow, that's great. We will definitely, though, make sure that we're dotting I's and crossing T's to make sure that you're the best fit for the team possible.
So Evan is from Ohio. Jake, you moved here from California?
Southern California, correct.
And like in California, you didn't like move up here and start working on bikes, right? Like, so what's the background? Have you been working on bikes for a long time?
Individually, yeah, not professionally.
Okay.
It's something that I've always been an inquisitive kid, ever since I was a little guy, and I used to love taking things apart, putting them back together. And as a little kid too, I always had a natural fascination and love of riding bikes. I was just that crazy kid that was out riding all over my town and where I grew up when I was in high school. I can remember being a freshman and sophomore in high school, and everybody's out, doing whatever the freshman and sophomore kids do, and I'm out riding my bike around my town 15, 20, 25, 30 miles. And at that time, that was a big ride, riding it on a mountain bike. And then naturally, once you start riding your bike a little bit, things start to kind of go a little wonky, a little haywire, and they need a little bit of fixing. And I was always kind of one of those kids that took responsibility, and I always had a job I was working on, and I didn't want to spend my hard-earned money on getting a bike fixed. So I would actually start taking it apart and fixing it myself. And back then we didn't have the likes of YouTube, so it was more of just like trial and error. And there was a little local bike shop that I would go into, and from time to time, ask a couple questions here and there, and slow but sure, you start to figure the things out, and you get the tools that you need. You start servicing your bike. You start figuring out what makes it ride really nice, and that's pretty much how I got started with tinkering with bikes. Then probably about 3 or 4 years before I moved to Washington, started. I had my own company doing something completely different in the world of strength and conditioning and things of that nature, and I had some space. that I'm like, you know what I'm going to do with this space is I'm going to turn it into my own little bike shop. It's going to be my own little quote unquote man cave that we're going to have bicycles in here. And there's a couple other people who worked with us who were into riding bikes as well. I'm like, hey guys, this is what we're going to do with this space here. It wasn't great. It was maybe 200 square feet, which is decent size. Got finished setting that thing up, and we had a cool little bike shop in there. And the president CEO of Felt Bicycles was actually a friend of ours and of mine. I've known him for quite some time. He used to come in and utilize our facilities and said, "Hey, Bill, what do you think about maybe selling some of these Felt bicycles in here?" And he got all excited and said, "Yes, let's do it." So we had a little boutique bike shop working out of there after about 4 or 5 months after setting it up, and just really fell in love with it. And it was a real nice break from the monotony of the same stuff that I'd been doing for almost 15 years at that point in time. So really fell in love with that idea of working on bikes and helping people get into a new bike and just doing all the things a normal little bike shop would do. So once we decided to move out of California and sold business stuff and finished that whole facet up, it wasn't something that I could bring with me. But left it basically to some friends down there that were on a little team that we had started. When I came up to Washington, I really wanted to look into that, but I didn't know anybody. I didn't know if there was a business model for it here. I didn't know if there was even that many people who like to ride bikes because, 6 months out of the year, we're dealing with crappy weather. So, over the course of about a year, I started kind of put myself out there and started working on a few bikes, and people started coming in, and that's how I really got to meet a lot of the local cyclists. So, people ask you what you're passionate about and what you like to do. I still do coach baseball. I remember when I first moved here, I ended up taking a baseball team and was the manager of the team. And a lot of the parents, they're like, "You've only been here for 2 weeks and you're going to manage this baseball team." I'm like, "Yeah, I've got nothing else going on. The only other thing I like to do is ride bikes." They're like, "Oh, I know somebody who likes to ride bikes." Right. And that's pretty much how the dominoes started to fall. They started connecting me with locals here, and I was really surprised at how friendly they were and how easy they made this process. And you find yourself out there like getting these random texts or emails or phone calls from people you don't know, and they're like, "Hey, you want to ride bikes?" I'm like, "Absolutely. We're going to be best friends just because we like to ride bikes."
You're my new best friend.
So, one thing leads to another. You meet one cyclist and they introduce you to 2 or 3 more, and it's a viral thing in our community. And that was another thing that really shocked me, is that there's all these people and they all kind of know each other, but they were never really doing anything formal. They were never really riding together, doing like a structured ride. And where I came from, it was Monday through Sunday. There was, at least 2 rides a day that you could pick from. That they would start at the same spot at the same time, and they would go almost year round. There was none of that here. And
do you think the local bike shop that you grew up when you were little still exists?
That is a really good question.
Don't know.
Oh, we should definitely look that up. That would be cool.
That will definitely be something very cool to look up.
Totally random thought, but yeah. Just curious, yeah.
So anyway, it's just been a lot of fun getting to know the community here.
Nice.
And giving back. I mean, that's one of my big things. I want to give back and make this place kind of known as a cycling town. I want this place to really kind of thrive on cycling. And what I love about, Matt and Evan, they're kind of the same mindset, and they both love themselves some bikes, but they're like really big about making it the same way with the endurance community, whether it be triathlon or running or what have you, cycling as well.
I think for me coming out here too, it was, I think the Midwest, I always hate using that term Midwest because the Midwest technically stretches from what?
It doesn't make any sense, right?
Like Ohio to Wyoming. Is that the Midwest?
And Michigan is the Midwest, but they're on the East time zone, like the easternmost time zone. Like, that makes no sense.
Roughly northeast if you're actually looking at the map. But yeah, when you look at that area, amateur-wise in the sports of triathlon and even cycling to some extent, you have awesome athletes developing out of there, and then they leave that region is the problem. So it's funny, when I came out here, I run into so many people from the Midwest, but everybody says the same thing when they get out here, that this is the most, like, it's such an awesome area for the endurance community, because it's not like the Boulder or the Southern California where it's very saturated, very competitive. There's a lot of elite, attitudes there, a lot of awesome people, but a lot of elite attitudes. You come out here and just like Jake said, "Oh, you ride bikes, I ride bikes. Well, let's ride bikes together and be best friends," and that's how running is. I mean, The first time I ran on Heritage Trail, think there wasn't a single person who didn't say hello to me, and I am not used to that. I'm used to Midwestern introverts and just keeping to yourself.
So to take a couple steps back, we talk about this little town that we all live in, and it's the city that we are in currently. For those of you guys that are listening to us and aren't actually our next door neighbors, the town is called Camas, Washington, and it's very, very close to Portland, Oregon. I would consider it a suburb of Portland, Oregon. We're just north of the river. So if you've ever flown into the Portland airport, we're kind of north of Portland, up in the north, I guess, east area. There's a larger town, Vancouver, Washington, which is confusingly named, but that's the larger suburb of Portland. That's again right over the river, and we are due east of that. And so Evan's like 2 miles from here is where he lives, and that's technically Vancouver, so it all kind of blends together. But that, just for any of you guys that are listening and weren't sure what we were talking about within the Northwest, that's particularly where we're talking about, and that's like where we live.
Yeah. And then just to give some background on Matt here, Camas nationally for the running community knows the name. Camas High School being one of the best high schools for running in the nation.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, thank you, Evan. I was just going to bring that up. Matt, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your involvement here with the community and some of the things that you do here for the high school?
Well, I already talked about my love of Taylor Swift, so that's important. So we were talking about Camas, is this small town in the Portland area. It strangely attracts like just talented runners and a lot of talented girls in particular. We've just had some really amazing runners come through here. The girls team, I think in the past, I helped coach the Camas High School team, and I think in the past like 5 years they've won state like 3 or 4 times. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. They may have been like second last year, but they tend to do very well. And, we just reload with this just ridiculous talented girls. I don't know why. I don't know if it's like the water or what, but like there's just, and Jake's nodding his head over here, but he has a daughter, and it's just like you're just like looking, you're like, oh, wow. Like anywhere else in the country, you'd have coaches like clamoring to be like, hey, this girl's going to be good. I can already tell. And it's just like, no, Camas, she's just going to come on the team and she's going to have fun with her friends and she's going to dominate, just like everyone else does at Camas. But we're just lucky. We have a good group of coaches there. There's like 3 of us and we all get along well, and it's a fun group. But the talent is it's staggering.
It's a funny thing that you talk about the track and the cross country being talented, but the high school itself has some pretty talented athletics. I mean, they just 2 years ago won state and were nationally ranked for football.
They do well in football.
The girls soccer team 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, went undefeated. And we're ranked number 1 in the nation for women's soccer. That's pretty phenomenal. So, I mean, there's definitely something in the water, Matt. I don't know.
I don't know what it is, but there's, one of it is there's good numbers here, and the weather is conducive to, doing a fair amount of training. Yes, there's rain, but that doesn't seem to slow too many of us down.
No.
I think it's just kind of this cool little spot,
we definitely have a pocket of some great people. And Evan alluded to this a little bit as well when he would do his little runs on Heritage Trail. When I first moved here, I came from Southern California. There's some good people down there. I have some good friends, and I don't want to disparage that area, but there are a lot of folks down there who have ulterior motives, and you really get that sense of people start talking to you, they're a little overtly nice to you. It's like, all right, what does this guy really want, or what does this lady really want from me? So you come up here and you start getting that same vibe of like, hey, I'm here to help you. What can I do for you? Let me reach out and let me do all these things for you. And you've got red flag, and you come to find out, like, no, these people are honest and sincere and genuine. I'm like, I'm going to love living here. This is a good thing. People are here to help you, and they're here to give back, and they're helping you, plug into communities, and they're taking care of you. And Lord knows if one person has one little small hiccup or sidestep or something goes wrong in their life, there's 20 people waiting in line to help them out with anything and everything. It's a great community.
Yeah. And just for myself, when I moved out here, and to go off Jake, not disparaging Ohio at all, anybody who knows me knows I'm very proud to be from Ohio, probably annoyingly so.
Yeah.
I probably talk about Ohio a little bit too much.
What's wrong with that?
LeBron James. But when I came out here for my interview, I was living with my buddy in Colorado for a couple months, and came out here and met with Steve Allstott and Ryan Knoll, who own. Steve is the owner of Proactive. Ryan is the clinic director at where I work, and talked for hours and hours like we had been friends forever, and just already knew that this was the place I wanted to be. Went for a stand with my buddy in Portland. Went for a run on Forest Park, and I think I've told Matt this story. Ran straight by Galen.
Background. Forest Park is this very large, trail system, and it's the largest city park in the U.S. It's bigger than Central Park in New York City, but it's kind of divides the city, and it's very like mountainous. There's a lot of hills, but man, you can run 100 miles of trails. It's ridiculous. It's fantastic. But you'll see pro runners run there, and he mentioned Galen Rupp, who is the American record holder in the 10K and a silver medalist in the 10K, and also
moving on to the marathon now.
Yeah, he won. Did he win Chicago? I think he just won Chicago Marathon this past fall.
Yes, I think so.
But I've seen I've seen Paula Radcliffe, who's a British runner who has the world record in the marathon, and just tons of runners, because they'll come to visit Nike which is in the Beaverton area, and where they go to run, they always go to Forest Park, which it's just a nice trail system. So you come in here and you're like, oh, this place is okay. You get to go run with the Olympians and the world record holders, and they're all running the same trails.
And then just being the tri-nerd out here too, when obviously Gwen is right around here, is part-time of the year.
Right. So Gwen Jorgensen is the gold medalist in the what's her background?
She was the gold medalist at Rio. She ran collegiately. She was a great swimmer too. Got picked up by USA Triathlon, kind of got recruited to be a triathlete. Right. And now she's, after having a kid, moved on to being a professional runner. So she's going for the marathon distance now.
And she
just ran low 15s in a 5K.
Yeah,
15:09 or something like that, okay. Wasn't it? Something right around
indoors, which is a little trickier. Although the indoor track that she ran it on was a 300 meter or 304 meter track, so it's a little bit longer than a standard indoor track, but which makes it a little bit easier. But still, I mean, she ran like a 30-second PR in the 5K, which when you run collegiately, dropping 30 seconds, you don't see that too often. So that's nice.
That's scary for all triathletes out there, that those types of runners. I mean, talking about those types of runners, we have like a Morgan Pearson, a guy out of Colorado, ran for CU. My buddy's helping with his strength program. Chris Lee out of Boulder's helping him with his strength program. But this is a guy who's run, well under 14. Yeah. And was, pro runner, and now picking
Switched
up
to triathlon.
Just decided that he can swim well, and he's going to jump on a bicycle and give him 1 year, and he'll be. Yeah. I mean, he's already killing it. Give him another year, and he'll be flying.
The biking just takes time. You just throw miles at it, right? It's good, right? It's a great sport.
There you go. All right, hey, let's talk about this dialed podcast that we're doing here. There is a big dialed cycling undertone here, so sorry for the misstep on dropping that. Anyway, Matt, tell me a little bit more about what it is that you would like to bring to the table, and what you would like to see future episodes entail. Some stuff that you think are your sweet spots, your expertise, and what you'd like to get out of this thing.
Well, I'm here to learn. So, I mean, you're going to constantly hear me asking questions like, hey, if you were wrenching on a bike and you had one tool, which would it be? What's the fun tool that you want to pick up to play with? Or, just stupid questions like that. You'll hear stupid questions from me a lot. As far as I think what you're getting at was what do you want to talk about specifically? Topics that I would be strong, in discussions. I would say any sort of endurance training regiment. I think we've studied how to set up programs for endurance athletes. So things like that I would enjoy. I would have probably more discussion amongst our groups. But I don't know that there's anything in particular that I really am dying to talk about. Other than picking your guys' brains and kind of getting some feedback on, other fun stuff that you guys like to chat about. So, yeah, that's a tough question. I don't know if I have an answer.
How about you, Evan? What is it that you'd like to talk about? What do you see the Dialed podcast being? What do you want to talk about and discuss and kind of dig into?
Here purely for comic relief and anatomy nerds. So anything that we can talk about biomechanically, I'd love. All the way from cycling to how to train endurance athletes, just like Matt was saying, all the way to, I think the the cool thing we can do with this podcast is kind of highlight, as Dialed grows and as the cycling community grows and as the endurance community grows, is highlight, local stars, local amateur stars. There's a lot of, I mean, in the endurance community, we love to talk about our superstars and the people that we look up to and who's doing what in the Olympics. But I mean, there are amateurs in this area and in surrounding areas that are working full time, have families. And, maybe it's time to start talking about their accomplishments and those guys who are killing races while working 50-hour weeks and have kids. And, we never get to hear about those guys. And I know in the triathlon world, I can think of a few off the top of my head that are guys who race and train like pros while somehow maintaining full-time jobs and doing all, all that family stuff, which I don't know anything about. These two guys are, they do the family stuff.
Both Jake and I have 3 kids, so
I have 0 kids, but I have 2 bikes. So.
Yeah, 2 bikes,
And a lot of running shoes.
There you go.
Yeah.
Great. Well,
Jake, same question for you.
Yeah, I really want to kind of elaborate a little bit on not elaborate, but add to what Evan was talking about, basically celebrating some of the local heroes here and talk about things that they've accomplished. And I'd also like to dig into some of the local events and maybe even, dive into some of the national stuff as well, but we're going to keep it somewhat local centric here for the time being. But taking a look at the race schedule as it pertains to all things bikes, we have a pretty detailed list of triathlons that happen here, and I'm sure that Matt and Evan can definitely dive into those a little bit more depth. I really like to even get into some product reviews, talking about some of the different things that we all kind of love and covet. And as a cyclist, there's all kinds of little gadgets and accessories and training aids and things of that nature that we absolutely love and adore. And there's always that one thing that we've got our eyes on that we're really wanting to get our hands on to dive into some of that as well.
Yeah, and it's sometimes hard, right, with products, and it's almost like some of the discussion that might be even more valuable is things to not waste your time on. I just think that there's there's so much stuff out there. Triathlon's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Cycling's pretty bad, but not nearly as bad as triathlon. But there's just stuff that's just like, yep, that's a waste of time. Skip it, Mm-hmm. And if you have someone to provide feedback for that, that little thing, it's like, okay, good. I don't have to waste my time or money on whatever it is, X, Y, Z, whatever. Our clip-on aero bars good? Yeah, they're fantastic. You can really cut a ton of time off, if you bring in your elbows. Just weird stuff like that some of us are probably going to have way too much detailed information on. Whereas, what about the, I can't think of something off the top of my head. Like, what about the, neon green bar tape? No, that's not going to make a difference.
One water bottle cage versus 2 on the rear. Yeah. I just had an argument about that today. That's the stuff that we argue about in triathlon. Yeah, so we need to have
just nerd.
We need to have more to do. Yeah. But going back to Jake too, he's also an OBRA member, board member. So that is going to bring in some interesting conversation too.
So OBRA is what?
That's the Oregon Bicycle Racing Association. It's the governing body for all things bike racing here in Southern Washington and the state of Oregon as well.
Okay.
How far into Southern Washington does that go? Is that just the Vancouver area? Or
pretty much. It's just because of our proximity to Portland.
That makes sense.
So you will get some folks that will be OBRA members. You don't have to live in the state of Oregon to be a member, but there's people probably a third of the way south in the southern part of the state of Washington who are a part of that.
But as far as Oregon goes, it does encompass the entire state, right? Or the OBRA does encompass the entire state, like as far as...
Oh, yeah.
I know on their calendar they list races, all the way down south, basically.
So, they're all over. And
I'm always looking for races, and I'm like, that's too far.
Exactly. They do have some races here in Washington as well that some of the promoters put on. And there are members actually from Idaho as well that actually come, because there's not much racing going on in Idaho, at least not that I know of. But they'll come over the Washington races, and they'll come down here for the OBRA races as well. So
I may be wrong here. We may have to fact check this, but does Idaho have the most square miles of national forest in America for the state? I'd heard somebody say that somewhere, which makes me think that they cannot have a lot of bike racing options. So
you have an assignment now for our next podcast.
Don't worry, I'll research that, everybody.
And there you go.
All right, right now someone's listening and Googling at the same time.
Along with what Gwen's indoor 5K time actually was. I'm sorry, Gwen, if I was wrong.
Yeah. And I've actually started to do a little bit of work for us too, to line up some guests to have on the show for different companies or manufacturers, or apparel or gadgets and whatnot. So we've got the people from BMC Bicycles, who is a team supporter of ours. Talked with some of the folks over at Garmin. Talked to some of the folks over at Castelli Sports Performance Wear. We can bring them on, and we can kind of pick their stuff apart and let them kind of tell us a little bit about what makes them special, and we can really dig into that a little bit as well. Maybe even put them on the hot seat a little bit if we see a glaring issue that needs to be resolved.
And I'd like to put in a plug for I'm also part business owner in a company called Edge Cycling Technologies, and I'm a part owner with Shane Page, John Mezengal, and my little brother. My little brother's our engineer. He got all the brains in the family. So we are now in development with a saddle that we are going to be distributing here very soon. So bringing Shane, the mind master of this entire business, on at some point to talk to would be really cool too. Because in the world of cycling, the international size of these companies is huge. So it's kind of cool coming in with a small company and seeing what this world actually looks like once you get into it. So
yeah, I'd love to hear any sort of information on saddles. I mean, that's just like critical part of the cycling piece here.
It's amazing how saddles have not. I think the reason that me and Shane got real passionate about coming up, it was Shane's brainchild, and then we developed this saddle, was I don't think anybody had looked at the anatomy of the human body when creating the saddle, and it basically has not changed in however long saddles have been out there. I mean, when you look at the pure shape, contour, and idea behind the saddle, outside of materials changing, the actual position hasn't. And you look at, the amount of this is when we get to the anatomy, is the amount of neural damage that's caused from that long term is what I think keeps a lot of people out of cycling.
Oh yeah.
So
especially like beginning cyclists, I tell people you're looking at 2 weeks of pain.
Oh, I can't feel anything down there, and haven't for like a decade now. So
well, you've been biking a long
that
time.
may be a problem.
What's this down there place that you refer to? I don't know if I can feel that, or I don't know if I've felt that in a decade.
I think so. Yeah, everybody be wary. That's a process of getting into cycling, but
Gotcha. Hey, one other thing too, some race recaps. So we've got a lot of local racing here. I mean, there's no shortage of runs and triathlons and bicycle races where we live. Pretty much starting in the end of February, and they'll go until the end of November, beginning of December. So we've got something on the calendar almost every week, and there's going to be plenty of things that we can talk about.
The bike races will be so much more fun to talk about. Me being, even though I am a triathlete, I come from bike racing, and any of you have done a bike race, the amount of discussion that goes on after a bike race, I think it's going to be cool for us to bring in a couple of the dialed racers and highlight who did well in the race and just talk about the race dynamics. Because me and Matt both know, talking about a triathlon, boring, it's like, oh, well, I swam and then I put my head down and wasn't really sure what was happening, and then the race was over.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the race just unfolds differently in a triathlon. In biking, I could see, us sitting around with beers and talking about a race that had just happened or something like that being really enjoyable.
Beers are crucial.
Yeah, it's critical.
We'll have to hit up our sponsor hub.
Yeah,
Hopworks Urban Brewery. Yeah, they're taking good care of Dialed.
So if people have questions or topic suggestions, where can they send those?
They can send their inquiries, their questions, their comments, their concerns to info@dialedcycling.com.
Okay, so it's email address. And then is there a website or anything like that people can read if they want to read more about, dialed cycling or anything like that?
Sure, yeah, it's the same thing, dialedcycling.com. Hop on that website. There's plenty of places in there that you can interact with us and leave some comments on different things. You can, give us some stuff that you'd like to see on the website as well, and we'll hopefully have these podcasts posted up there for everybody to listen to at their leisure as well.
If a listener is on Facebook, is there any place they can kind of connect with us that way?
Yeah, there's two places that I would recommend. We do have a team site, but we kind of reserve that for the teammates. But there's a Dialed Cycling Club. We've got the Dialed Triathlon Club. And we've also got the general Dialed Cycling webpage that you can hop onto.
And Facebook was recently in the news, and a lot of people are just dropping Facebook like a bad habit.
I'm staying with it.
You're sticking it out.
I'm going to stick this one out. I'm going to wait for this to go. I'm going to wait for this to blow over.
This is going to blow over. But if they're not on Facebook and they're on something like Instagram or
the Twitter.
the Twitter.
The Twitter. You know what? I don't do the Twitter. I've tried. I think I've tried 3 times, and I just can't.
Okay.
I just can't. It's
I had
just
to be explained the hashtag to me. I still haven't really, I like
okay.
Instagram better.
Well, we can have a whole episode talking about hashtags.
We should. We should bring on somebody to convince us that the Twitter's worth it. So,
yeah. We do have an Instagram page as well, the Dialed Cycling and the Dialed Cycling team. Those are our 2 different Instagram pages where you can see a couple pictures on there.
And I'll be posting any of our podcasts onto Facebook for all of you people who are staying with them.
Hey,
Evan Price.
One thing real quick, we didn't get into what it is that you do, Matt. We talked about me and Dialed Cycling. We talked about Evan and proactive physical therapy. Tell us a little bit about you. You're retired, huh?
I'm retired, yeah. No, I write software. So mostly mobile software is typically what I dabble in. I do coach, but that's more of a part-time thing in the fall. My main gig is writing software. So hence why I can, skip out of work and come hang out with you guys, drink beers and talk about whatever on a podcast. So
Good stuff.
Or sneak out for bike rides in the middle of the day.
Matt does some pretty cool stuff, and we'll talk about it in future episodes, but he's got some cool things going on. He's a pretty creative dude. He gets out there and gets it done, and he's got some cool things going on with his boys as well. Some like, what is that, like toy reviews, and you're getting into a little bit of like some Lego stuff, which is like near and dear to my heart. Grew up
so
all about Legos.
So I have 3 boys and they're young. 7 is my oldest, so 7, 5, and 3 will be 3 next month. And we started to like just put together a little YouTube channel where they just open up Legos and do stupid stuff, like funny stuff. I had my oldest kid go for a run with me, which is really cool. I'll show you this video maybe like after the show. But and I just videotaped him on the trail, running around on the trail, which is super fun. And he ran, I think, 4 miles, and he was exhausted. It was hilarious.
Was this the 7-year-old ran 4 miles?
Yeah, this is my 7-year-old.
Wow, that's a lot of steps.
But mostly on their YouTube channel, they'll like open up a Lego, and it's pretty fun because then I'll put a time lapse video on, and they'll like build the Lego. So I mean, if you guys are into Legos, and you,
definitely into Legos.
Oh yeah, so you should check it out.
Where can I see this video, Matt?
Which one?
I want to see this video. Where can I see this video at?
Okay. It's called Legrand Toys, the YouTube channel. So if you search for Legrand Toys, and it's Legrand Toys on YouTube, you can pull up the channel and you can subscribe to the channel if you're into children's toys. And you can just give us a thumbs up. It'll be fun.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Thank you, Matt.
Is this also open to people who do not have children? If I just want to look at Legos?
No, you're out.
It's not. Okay, that's fine.
But I will show you the trail running video.
That sounds fun. Yeah.
All right. Well, before we wrap this thing up, real quick, what's your key race that you have for this year? What's your big A race for the year, Matt?
Okay, so in November I raced an Ironman race. I'm actively recovering from that. Maybe another couple years I'll maybe get back over the hump and get back into something.
He's going to be out there again this year. He will be. Give this guy 2 weeks, he can get fitness back.
I'm gonna race this summer quite a bit. I'd like to do at least a couple of bike races because I just really enjoy like riding with the team. I don't think I'll do extremely well, but I would love to. I mean, I just think our team is fun to ride with. And then on the triathlon scene, there's just a handful of local races, between here and kind of like the Bend area. So Bend is in Eastern Oregon. So I won't go too much further than that. So this area, I'll stick around and I'll do a couple races. So I'll probably do kind of that. The most I'll do is kind of like that half Ironman distance. No full Ironmans this season. And I don't know how serious I'm going to take them. I might just like cruise through, maybe 6 to 8 races or so this season, and just like, I don't know, like if my legs are bugging me, I'll just either drop out of the run, or just cruise them and high five Evan as he wins the race. I don't know what I'm gonna do, competitively wise, but I don't think it's gonna be a seriously competitive season for me. So I'm mostly planning on just trying to do some fun stuff, like maybe videotape some stuff, and just try to like get out there and have as much fun as possible.
Some background on Matt real quick, because he's being super humble right there. He ran at Alabama, correct?
I did, yes.
And he ran pretty quickly for the 10K. Would you like to say the time there, Matt?
No. I mean, so if you're a competitive runner, I think you'll get the feel of like where I was. I was like 31 low, for 10K. Which for, some people, or, if they're cyclists or triathletes, it's like, oh, wow, that sounds super fast. But if you're a collegiate runner, you get the idea, like, okay, he's a mid packer kind of guy, like, not a superstar. Definitely not like NCAA champion type territory. So I ran collegiately, and I ran, of course, all growing up, you run if you're going to run collegiately. And then I was able to run at that Division I level and go to the NCAA championships for cross country and just do some really cool stuff, like travel for running. It's just such a good experience, being in your early 20s and being able to do some of these cool things. So that was awesome. And I'm like you guys, I just want to like give back to this sport, like whether that's cross country or triathlon or cycling. Like it's been really good to me, and that's important to me for me to give back. So yeah.
And Matt definitely has himself some horsepower under the hood. And don't let him fool you. He can take himself very seriously when it comes down to getting it done in a race. Matt, you want to remind us what your time was in that most recent Ironman you did?
9:55.
9:55.
The sub 10 club. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would have.
It's a long race day.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't.
Yeah. I mean, you have your ups and downs, and so I was pretty determined to break 10, and almost didn't happen. So,
but it did. But it did.
Yeah, somehow.
We will definitely in this podcast get into talking some nutrition and race day long, because I think the biggest difference from the cycling to the triathlon world is how you nutrition during the race. Cycling, you eat obviously most of that race, especially once you get to that Pro 1-2 races where they're longer races. Triathlon, you got to be careful with what you're eating and how you're doing it, because you got to jump off that bike and run. And anybody who's been halfway through a race before when nature calls knows that is not a situation that you want your GI system to have to get into.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost like the whole GI issue is just like running and GI issues. That could be a whole episode, right? Like,
oh yeah.
There's so many, like, world record, you're on world record pace in the marathon or whatever it is, and you just see these people like, nope, they're done, they're going to hit the porta potties the rest of the time. Like, that's just a constant thing. Like, if you go back and you look at the history of marathoning, you'll see this stuff happen, and you're just like, oh, that's just so tough. The stomach issues that people have in that particular event,
you just feel for them. Crazy. Such a bad situation.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Good stuff. How about you, Evan? What do you have targeted for this year? Do you have anything on your race calendar for the year?
Yeah, I've got I was just talking with some of my buddies. I'm not sure how many more years I'm going to try and race quickly. I know I've got a couple more left in me. As life gets busier with business and PT and trying to grow myself as the guy treating these people and not the people racing these people. This season I'm starting out with in like 2 weeks here, Beaver Freezer. Is that in 2 weeks, Matt? April 5th or 7th, which is a sprint triathlon at Oregon State University in Corvallis. Since I do not know this region as well, and I've not been to Corvallis yet, so that'll be fun. And then I'm going to race the North American 73 Championship. 73 is half iron distance at St. George in Utah, and that's May 5th. And then from there, it's going to be a couple more 73s. Pacific Crest, which is a race in Bend, correct?
Your door. Yeah, I didn't realize you were going to run that. So
yeah. And then end the season on nationals, Olympic distance. So that'll be in Cleveland, Ohio this year, everybody.
Yeah,
Ohio is bringing the Olympic distance national championship home. So
more background on Evan. I mean, he is super competitive. My understanding is, when he races, he's going to win the race. It's almost unfair, but no, it's really going to be fun to have you race in this area. And I think we're lucky that you're around to either train with or race with, or, either that or just give advice to some of us that are, not necessarily as fast. But for the PT side of things, I do think that having you still do some competitions is fun, because, it's nice to know, like, oh, yeah, this guy's, not just giving you advice haphazardly. He actually, goes out there and is doing this stuff. So I hope you keep racing for quite a long time.
Yeah, I think at the beginning of every season in my now, what have I been racing? 8 years now, just triathlon, I think. Each year at the beginning of the season, any triathlete knows you have that burnout effect where you're saying, this may be the last year I do this. And then you get through your race season and, you get that fire back and you have a good season and you want to get back at it. But I definitely have some aspirations to do a season of ultra trail running. I definitely want to get in some 100-mile races. I want to do some like enduro cycling racing, gravel grinding sort of racing. And I'm not a very explosive athlete, so I got to do these long stuff.
It's cool that there's so many options, right?
Oh yeah,
there's so much cool
you can
stuff
switch
right now.
You can go to open water swimming if you want. You can do.
That'd be cool.
The endurance world is never ending options wise. There's no reason to not be doing something endurance
Yeah.
racing.
And just because we get older doesn't mean that we slow down either. I mean, there's some pretty competitive people out there that
I get beat by 40-year-olds all the time.
Yeah.
I get toasted.
So that's the beauty of the community that we're in. It's not something that you have to hang them up when you turn 30 years old. You can keep going into your 50s and your 60s. And I've raced with some guys in their 70s, which is absolutely nuts. It's just that gives me hope that there's many moons to come for the cycling stuff.
That's why this community is so great right there. I mean, you're talking about people who are committed to something, people who get up early, and people who like to get things done. And that's why I think we all get along whenever you go on a ride with somebody who just likes to ride bikes, is because there's a kinship there that's hard to describe until, I'm sure Jake and Matt can agree with this. Some of the best conversations I've ever had and some of my best friends was on a bicycle somewhere. And that's tough to beat. That's tough to find other places.
Yep. Good stuff. All right. Well, we really appreciate your time, Matt. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Evan, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jake.
We will see you soon. My name's Jake with Dialed Cycling, and we'll be back in another episode soon. Have a good one.